They've been fantastic. These might be the best two, actually.
Yeah, man, another good week. I'm just kind of sad it's coming to an end next week.
There's a lot to jam in for the next two episodes. That's my concern for next week. Honestly, is I thought we were going to get more of the Pacer series this week, and for them to not even touch on it, I mean, there's a lot to get through because you assume they're going to take a look back at the first Jazz series as well, and the year before the Last Dance season. So it'll be interesting how they do it. I trust them on it, but the other side of me really hopes this just means we're going to get a ton of like bonus content at some point down the line as well.
Yeah, I really hope so. Oh no, I mean, yeah, I hope so. Like we talked last week, I was hoping they would get a surprise, like 2-hour episode for 10. But I don't know. I mean, they're gonna have to touch the Jazz series, the first one, and then they have the Pacers series. I mean, the Pacers series went 7 games. It was fantastic. The first Jazz series went what 6 games? It was fantastic. It's like yeah, I don't know. I wonder if they'll do it where like the Pacers and the Jazz series will be episode 9, and then they'll just kind of do that whole final Jazz series as episode 10.
Like tie in the burnout from the Pacers series in with the year before and kind of roll it that way.
Yeah, or they just do the year before a little more. And I don't know what else they can talk about. I mean, they've already caught up on the timeline, so.
Yeah, they did leave it with a pretty good cliffhanger, to say the least, with how they did wrap things up there, and doing it with that epic 7-game series that we've come to, at least in my mind, remember as one of the bigger moments of what's happened with that series overall, for sure, in 1998, just the lead up to that last trophy. I just remember Larry Bird just being so angry at the end of Game 7, and I can't wait to relive that again for just how frustrated he was.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, you're right. It did leave it off with Reggie Miller pretty much saying we were the better team. We thought we were the better team, and it's like, here's my chance. I finally get to send Michael Jordan to retirement, and no spoilers. Obviously, it's been 20 years, but doesn't work out.
Right, exactly. So let's backtrack a little bit to Game 7 here, and we can talk a little bit, or not Game 7. I mean, see, I got Game 7 stuck in my mind. Episode 7. A lot going on with this one, and it's starting off with, honestly, what I just felt was like one of my favorite quotes so far of the series, when you have Craig Sager and you have Jerry Krause going up to the mic and Sager going, are you surprised at how well this team's holding together for all the backstabbing you've been doing? And Jerry's like, what are you talking about? And then he walks away, and then you get, way to go, Craig. And the whole thing just ends. Like, that was like hands down one of my favorite pieces of tonight, and we got it in the first 30 seconds. It was just fantastic.
I loved that only because I would have been the person saying thanks a lot, Craig. Like that would have been a total me. So I appreciated that so much.
You're getting so ready to like get your story done for the news, and you have all this stuff ready to go, and you get one question, and it is such a focused question just to tear Jerry Krause down. Like oh God, I loved every minute of it, every single piece of it.
Yeah, I mean, back to the theme of just Jerry Krause being the villain in this whole thing. It's like right away, episode 7, boom, there it is. Jerry Krause at the beginning, and yeah, that was kind of wild. Good start though to the night.
And even quietly later in that episode, when he's trying to like hype up Tony Kukoc, he grabs the mic off the table at the press conference and starts explaining the number 7 to the reporters about how great Tony Kukoc is. All these kids in Europe are wearing the number 7 because of him, like overselling this. It was like Jimmy Hart hyping up as like a manager in like WWE back in the 80s and 90s. Or we get it, dude. You're really happy you brought this guy over. Just right. Overselling it.
Not just that, for even that little dig that he made there as well, everyone wants to be like Tony. Like after the whole want to be like Mike campaign gets off, it's like, dude, we get it. Like we understand, like this is not the guy that you enjoy having here, and you have the beef, and you want to prove that this isn't just Michael's, creation, and he's not the only one responsible. Like, it's just like, stop it. Just stop. That's all you got to do is just stop. Just let the players do their thing and stop talking. For the love of God, just stop talking.
Yeah, that I mean, I don't know. Like I read that article about how Jordan thought he was going to be the big jerk and asshole in this, and you know, he obviously is at the end of the episode 7 that kind of comes out and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's harder to find someone more annoying in this series than Jerry Krause. Like it's just, I felt bad at first because I was like, you know what, they're gonna turn this into a big just Jerry Krause sucks and all this stuff and but it's like, man, yeah, dude, I don't know. I have a hard time, feeling bad for him as the series goes on, just because of what what we know now and just what could have been essentially with this decade run instead of just the 6.
Well, my thing is too is I always kind of knew Mike was an asshole. Like just growing up and even knowing
Oh,
hearing all the stories now, it just everyone kind of knew Michael Jordan was kind of a jerk, and that has leaked out over the last 20 some odd years now. Like the whole even in his Wizards days, it really started to leak out when he was with the Wizards with the Call Me Brown stuff. And I knew Jerry Krause had kind of torn down the dynasty, but I never knew the details of it that this documentary showed me, and just how kind of diluted and how much he wanted to have credit for it.
No, absolutely. I mean, it just, and honestly, with the way that, I mean, I'm kind of glad it focused on as much game show. The 7th episode did focus on like the retirement and everything that went into those teams. And honestly, they even took a couple digs at Michael. It seemed like, even not necessarily within the Jerry it to an extent, with the way that they were bringing everything together,
yeah.
with how that team played, and then just to kind of see it all fall apart in that series, and then watching Pippen basically just give up on that last play where Kukoc made that final shot. It's like, I don't remember any of that, and it's kind of crazy to
Mm-hmm.
see that there was that tension, and it kind of just, in my opinion, like, yeah, like Shaq was really difficult. So was Horace Grant. Like that whole thing. Like
Yeah.
it was rough, but just to watch it all, fall apart, and then with the Knicks, it's just like, man.
Yeah, I mean, and then Scottie Pippen doubling down when they asked him about it, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't think I'd change anything if I had the chance to go back," which is wild to me. I didn't really realize he did like it was that bad where he refused to go in the game just because they had the play drawn up for Tony. And I
Yep.
mean, Tony said it too. Didn't he say he hit like 4 game winners or a couple game winners? They
Yeah, and
showed
he
the
had luck all year.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, they showed the Bucks one
did they?
twice. I thought like yeah, they
They
showed
they showed it. They showed it in the recap of the season. Then they showed it when Tony
yeah,
brought up the game winners. It was one of the game winners that they showed along with some other ones. There was
yeah,
one against the Pacers that's
Pacers.
really well known too.
Uh,
That Pacers one actually is if that one's really well known from a Reggie Miller clip where
yeah.
he hits a three, then he takes a bow at center court at Chicago Stadium, then Kukoc
Uh,
hits that bank in three. So that one actually has two really cool shots with
I,
it.
I don't know how true it is, but I was watching that shot on YouTube about a week or so ago, and one of the comments said, I think it was Steve Kerr on that show,
Mm.
Open Court,
Yeah,
said,
Steve Kerr went up and bowed in Miller's
yeah,
face afterwards.
but
Yeah, that it's
it did,
true.
it did see, and I thought that was true too. But then you look at the angle that they had, and like Miller turns and like starts like facing the crowd, and I think he goes to the starts going to the locker room. So
Well,
maybe.
Miller and Kerr both confirmed it on the show. They were both on the
Oh,
panel for
did
that
they?
show.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, because there's no clip of it. You can't find a clip of it, so it's kind of just you have to
Mhm.
take it the word by mouth. But yeah, if they both confirmed it, yeah, go for it. But I mean, yeah, the whole just Pippen and then Cartwright seeing that and everyone's seeing that Pippen pretty much was their leader at the time and just refusing to go in the game and then Cartwright stands up and it was wild. But I mean, looking at that season from Pippen, I mean, the first one fully without Jordan, 22
Mhm.
points a game, 8.7 rebounds, 5.6 assists. But like, I mean, on defense too, 2.9 steals, almost a block per game. Like he was really damn good that year.
And I think he that year finished third in the MVP voting. I mean, it was a phenomenal season. And then there's a really cool stat about him the following season, the season where Jordan came back partway through, and I think it's Pippen's one of like I think at this point like five guys in NBA history to lead his team in points, rebounds, assists, and steals during the course of the year, and the other 3 or 4 like inner circle Hall of Famers are guys that could be at the end of their careers. It's a pretty impressive list.
Absolutely. I mean, it's nice that he. I know. I'm sure he wished he had more time with the Bulls, being the guy before Michael came back. But as we all kind of learned in that 94-95 season as well, and just everything that happened just before Michael did come back, it's like things just weren't what they really seemed. I mean, they showed that they had that struggle where they were 3 games over 500. They were really going back and forth. Things kind of fell apart. Obviously, we know Horace Grant had left. There really wasn't that dominant presence in the paint to, help facilitate everything. And it's like, what can he do? Like he really, at that point, and they really didn't dive into it deeper. And I know there's a lot of stories out there about it as well, that glue that just held everything together. That's like the piece that he was ultimately missing. He couldn't just take over the game. Although, like Zach, you mentioned those stat lines. I mean, honestly, you take that out of anybody, anyone. But just the things that don't show up on the stat sheet to keep the team together and to keep them pushing. And as we saw at the end of episode 7, just the mentality that Jordan brought to his teammates and pushing them and explaining why he pushed them to get them to greatness, to get them that title. That was the missing piece that Scottie just didn't have, and it went to show when things got a little bit rougher towards that second season without MJ.
There's a great story Francona tells, and I want to say it's in an ESPN.com piece from like a year or 2 ago. I'll try to look it up and post it, but it talks about how him and Jordan were watching a game together, and they were watching, I think it was that 94-95 Bulls team right before Jordan came back, and the Bulls were up by like 7 or 8 points, and Jordan was just kind of watching the game with Francona and said, they're not going to win this game. And Francona's kind of looking at him sideways. They're up 7 or 8 with like 4 minutes left, and Francona's kind of like, you're insane. The Bulls are up. They look comfortable. And Jordan just kind of said they don't. I think it was a game against a team like the Knicks or someone that typically gave the Bulls trouble, and it wasn't one of the playoff games. And Jordan just told Francona that what they need they don't have, what they need they're missing. And Francona kind of didn't get it at the time. And then when he saw him when he came back, he's like, oh, they just didn't have that extra gear, that extra motivator, that guy to hold it together. Because everyone loves Pippen. Like all the stuff coming out now, there's a bunch of great podcasts about how people love Pippen so much, but he wasn't that grinder and that type of leader in the sense that Michael was.
Well, they touched on it too when they said, I forget the example they used. It was something about like, Pippen was more friendly and they showed him kind of like helping a player up, and he didn't push you in practice, and practice were a little more, I guess, lenient. I mean, obviously it's an NBA practice. It's not, anything to be, light. But, yeah, I mean, they just pretty much was Pippen is, more friendly to the players. He wasn't going to push you as hard and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, they talk about it a little bit. The one thing I'm really disappointed in episode 7 that it was either it had to be episode 7, that they didn't show, that I was a little disappointed, and I brought it up last week. 0 mention of the bogus Hugh Hollins foul call, Pippen on Hubert Davis. That, like, I mean, okay, you guys are big basketball fans. Tell me if I'm wrong here. I feel like that is a very important moment in NBA history, especially in that time, in that series. What was it, like a 2-2 series or something like that?
Yeah, it was game 5.
Yeah, it was a swing game. And it's like, that could have changed everything. I mean, I don't think the Bulls won the title that year anyway, but still, I mean, that was not even a second, not even a word of it.
Because they kind of touched on every game. It's just like, well, nope, that's it. Like, forget it. Like, not even.
Yeah.
I know we had talked about that before, and we were kind of anticipating that to be brought up this week. And like, I'm assuming you're bringing it up here now that you were anticipating it too, as I'm sure you were as well, Nick. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, I guess there's not enough time. Like, I honestly don't know. Like, it felt like they tried to toss some substance in, and yeah, the Scottie sitting out isn't the most, it's more compelling, I guess, to the overall narrative. I know. But I'm assuming they again, this has been a very Jordan heavy series, and to an extent, I think we all understand why. However, it would have been nice to get a little bit more out of it, just because it's always, oh, well, Jordan wasn't part of those teams. They might have been able to get over the hump if they had Jordan. It's like, no, that team was really damn good. And they really never just got the credit that they were owed when it came down to it.
That was. Do they get past I think it was the Pacers the next round. I don't know if they get by them because that Knicks series was the conference semis. And then I think the Knicks beat the Pacers in the conference finals that year. But
that was the Miller game, right? In that series, or was that?
No, I think that was the next year after they bounced them.
Year.
But I don't know. I mean, was I a little surprised they didn't touch on it at all? Maybe a little bit. But then I kind of snapped back and, well, this is a Jordan documentary. That Hugh Holland's call would really didn't have anything to do with Jordan. Like, that's more of a Bulls story. So if this documentary is truly a Jordan doc, and I think that's where we kind of circle back to what we were talking about last week, whereas is this a Bulls dynasty doc? Is it a Jordan doc? Like, what is this? That's where it goes to that Jordan documentary side. And he didn't really have anything to do with that. It was more about trying to tell the redemptive part of Scottie. They showed that gigantic dunk on Ewing the very next game. And then after that, it's kind of details about that specific Bulls team, but doesn't really have anything to do with the dynasty or Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, like we've all said, I mean, when it came out, the news came out that we were going to get this documentary. I think, we all thought it was going to be a Bulls documentary with the, Jordan kind of storyline leading the way. But, I mean, it's kind of turned into just the full Jordan documentary. And to me, that's I love it. I'm happy with it. I'm happy it's turned out great, but it's disappointing because I think there's a lot more they could include if they would have just done maybe 2 separate documentaries, or kind of just, picked a path, but picked the Bulls path, because you could always go ahead and do a Jordan documentary again. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the Bulls documentary eventually is going to run out of time, especially because the NBA, like, one thing I've noticed is, like, you look at these games, I mean, it's like 78-78 with 30 seconds
The good
left.
old days, right?
And, like, yeah, and the rate we're going with the NBA, I mean, I'm very confident we're going to have a 4-point line within, like, 10 years. You know what I mean? It's like the games are just continue to evolve. So I think I don't think Jordan would ever fade away, but I think, like, the Bulls dynasty, it'd be there, but it wouldn't be as interesting 20 years from now as a 10-part documentary or anything.
Well, and let's just say about the Hugh Holland thing too, is we want that brought up just because we want to be angry about it again.
Yes. I still need.
If you're joining us on Facebook or on YouTube right now, drop in any comments, any questions regarding episode 7 and 8 here tonight of The Last Dance that just wrapped up on ESPN. Whether you're watching the explicit version on ESPN or the clean version, I don't know why you would, on ESPN2. Got quite a few F-bombs tonight. I feel like
I was going to say they earned their the parental advisory this week.
They did. I was kind of waiting for it. I'm like, there it is. Like, finally, we're getting to the fun things where we can be like, yeah, they're swearing at 9:00 on a Sunday night on ESPN. Regarding the episode with everything going on with his dad's death, and his murder, I don't remember it being that way. And I don't know if that's just straight up amnesia on my part, but
I'm with you.
The fact, like, he pulled off on the side of the road to take a nap, and he was robbed, and he was shot, and not only that, but he was dumped in a creek. I just thought he was shot in a car, and they found his body in a car. Like, that, like, I'm like, whoa, no. Eye-opening.
What? It wasn't. They touched on it a little. Did they touch on it in Space Jam? Like, they showed a clip or something? Not. It's a kids movie, so they can't, like, I'm sure they didn't show, like, the shooting or anything.
Show the investigation, the Law and Order investigation.
I think they, like, showed, like, a newspaper headline or something. 'Cause I remember
they set the stage. They tried to, like, retcon it into the Space Jam thing, yeah.
I think that's kind of what I remember more. I remember, obviously, the shooting part, but I'm with you, Steve. I thought it was like he was just shot and left in the car, and they found. I don't even remember it being like a 30-day thing. I thought it was
to be
pretty quick,
missing like that long. It's like, okay, this is a lot more crazy than I remember it being.
Well, because the documentary briefly touched on it a little bit. They said, well, was it odd for him to be out of touch? And they said yes, but I think it was in the context of the question of for that long, because there was a story that came out maybe right before this documentary started airing about how every once in a while Jordan's dad would maybe like take off for a day or two, and this is an era before cell phones and constant communication, and he
Yeah.
may be out of touch for like a day or so at most, and then all of a sudden like it stretches into 3 or 4 days and he's not
Yeah.
contacting his wife, and that's when concerns started to get raised about 2 or 3 days in, and that's kind of when the wheel started to turn.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just and you kind of touched on it, like with the Space Jam thing and how they kind of intertwined it in there, and just how he retired and he was going into baseball and all this. But even some of the other quotes that were said in the episode about the retirement, and like we all knew, like it happened later. I mean, it happened in October of '93.
Yeah.
This all happened.
Like what, 2 or 3 weeks before opening tip,
Right,
I think,
like,
of that season.
I mean, I think all had figured like, okay, that had a lot to do with it. That was just part of it. But then all of a sudden we're getting quotes saying like, back during the Olympics, this was known and the burnout was known and this is going to be my last season. And to realize that it went that far back versus just being this, my dad was just killed. I don't have the rush to play anymore. Like it's just not in me to play professional basketball. It's kind of like, okay, what's the real story here? Because the timing of it all, like, I don't know if it was just a dig at Krause to wait that long to basically be like, F you, I'm going to put you up in a terrible spot and 2 weeks before the season starts and quit. Or if it was just kind of like the last straw, if he was still on the fence. Like, I don't know. Like, the more I think about it, the more the timing is just so bizarre with everything. And that's not even taking into account the fact that I'm hoping for the last time, put those rumors to rest about the David Stern potential suspension or...
Mm-hmm. Which is, like I talked about a couple of weeks ago, was just the dumbest idea. And one of the writers made essentially my point too. It's like, why? He didn't do anything illegal, so you're going to suspend him randomly for 18 months for doing nothing illegal.
Right. And not only that, but I mean, and the point was brought up, like, it doesn't only just hurt the Bulls to take Michael Jordan out of the NBA, it brings down every single franchise in the NBA in terms of monetary value.
Especially after you've created this international foothold with a dream team, to just randomly suspend the biggest star in the entire world for, again, doing nothing illegal. I think, to your point about how long this has been in talks for, I think in why he waited so long is I think what had happened wasn't, I think it was Michael Wilbon. I'm pretty sure it was him talking about it. Is the original plan, like what Mike had talked about, is before his dad went missing, is he was going to retire like right before or right around the time of the draft. And then his dad went missing, and it was like this 3-week, month-long thing. So by the time they got that all figured out and Michael could like come down from that and really try to think about it again, you're starting to stretch into September and October. And that's why the call on this was made so late. It was really like he was going to do it in, mid to late summer. And then obviously his dad's murder, or his dad going missing and then finding out he was murdered, just kind of pushed everything back. And that's why it was so late.
Yeah, and then, when he's at the retirement, he's kind of like smiling, and then Krause and Reinsdorf are acting all, nice as nice as they can. And the whole White Sox game against the Blue Jays in the, ALDS or the first round.
ALCS, yeah.
ALCS, yeah, game 1. And, yeah, it was wild. I mean, even seeing that footage of people, like, standing in the streets of Chicago watching from, like, the Tribune Tower, like, the TVs inside, and it's just surreal to think, like, what if, these days, what if, LeBron James just, I'm going to go play football, or I'm going to go play baseball, or, like Patrick Mahomes is like, I'm going to go play basketball. Like the biggest star in your sport just pretty much ending it. Yeah, and it was wild. And I'm glad they spent time on the baseball stuff. I think it's important because I don't think a lot of people know a lot of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. The baseball stuff was interesting. I know a lot about it, so for me, it was kind of like, I don't know, weird.
There'd been a whole 30 for 30 on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like, I mean, okay. I guess I can get my way through it if I have
did
to.
like the quote saying, like, the table with everybody, it's like the Last Supper. It's like, oh, we
Yeah.
got Pontius Pilate over here at the end, Jerry. Uh,
Yeah.
Jerry's here.
Yeah. Yeah. We gotta stick him at the end of the table. And the
Well,
media
yeah.
herd. How about Mark Giangreco still on TV in Chicago in the front saying he's coming, he's
Oh,
coming, he's coming.
man, good old Mark, still going strong all these years.
Yeah.
Man, I tell you.
Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, yeah, that was just wild to see. And then the whole baseball thing, I mean, I don't know how much you guys want to touch on that, but um, did you guys hear? It's kind of a little bit of a side story. It was on the Score this week. Did you hear Ron Coomer's story about Michael Jordan?
No, I didn't have time to consume any
So
talk radio this week.
Coomer's playing third base, and they're in somewhere, whatever, Double A, sold out stadium. And so Terry Francona is the third base coach at the time, or he's coaching third base for whatever reason at the time. And Jordan's leading off, and the catcher's looking at Coomer like, "You get to the bag, we're gonna pick him off." So Coomer kind of looks the other way. Next pitch is thrown, catcher's giving him a signal like, "I'm gonna pick him off." Coomer kind of brushes the ground, looks away. Catcher's getting like frustrated, looks at Coomer, gives him the signal one more time, and Jordan's probably like, has way too big of a lead. And Coomer goes over to Francona between pitches. He goes, "Look, tell Jordan to get back on the bag because we're going to pick him off." And Terry looks at Jordan and goes, "They're right. They got you picked off. Get back in the bag." And Coomer's like, "I'm not getting booed out of a damn minor league stadium because I picked off Michael Jordan."
That's awesome.
That
That's an awesome minor league baseball story, like the epitome of just minor league baseball.
And that's my thing too. It's like watching Jordan rides the bus. I got to go back and watch that again. I'm more interested in hearing maybe from former players that play with Jordan about the stories, because the ride the bus story. Obviously, we know he paid for the luxury coach bus or whatever it was, but I'm sure there's got to be tons more stories from minor league players or opposing coaches or players like that from his time in the minor leagues.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Jordan rides the bus since probably right around the time it came out. I just remember some bits and pieces stories on it, but yeah, it's maybe something this week I go back and rewatch a little bit.
I can't even remember when. I mean, it had to have been what 5-7 years ago, somewhere in that range.
Oh, it might have been long.
Maybe.
I thought it was longer.
I cannot remember. I just remember I just remember the guy, whoever they had playing Jordan in all those shadowy shots, was clearly not built correctly for it. It just looked terrible. That's the one thing I just distinctly remember from that documentary.
Terrible made-for-TV biopic of Michael Jordan that they tried 15 years ago, where it was Chicago Bulls across the front of the chest. I'm like, God, this is just terrible.
And it being in Birmingham, Alabama, with a media herd, media circus every night. It's no, I've never been to Birmingham. I can't imagine there's a whole lot. Now it's you got the Reese's Senior Bowl there, and that's the biggest event of the year. I don't even know. Are the Barons even a team there anymore?
Yeah,
they are,
I believe so.
Okay, yeah, I didn't even.
I'm sure that bought them a couple decades with the amount of money that they made off of everything out there.
They're still cashing checks.
They're cut minor league teams apparently.
Yeah,
that's the rumor.
I actually. I think actually the 30 for 30 on Jordan says, I think at the time of that documentary, even if it was a few years ago, the Barons were still in business and they were still selling Jordan 45 baseball jerseys there, and they were still the biggest seller.
Why not? Why not?
Would it surprise you at all?
No.
Why not? I would have a Michael Jordan promotional night 10 times in the summer to draw in fans.
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah, I guess moving off of the baseball and looking towards episode 8 that touched on the return, I like how they bridge the gap and they use B.J. Armstrong as the guy to kind of bring everything together. That second series, and really just in the NBA in general, the second series, that conference semifinal series always seems to go by the wayside. No matter who you're talking about, what round you're thinking about, it's just that round happened in between the first round and the conference final. It just whatever it may be. And just remembering it was the Hornets and it was BJ Armstrong and Glenn Rice, and BJ Armstrong getting that vocal after, that win, despite how ever close it might have been. And really this episode, I think got me thinking, and this was kind of the trigger for it, was there are so many instances of people pissing Michael Jordan off.
Yes.
and and people not realizing if you piss him off, you're poking the bear, and he's going to come after you, and he's going to be.
And especially BJ
Right.
should know better.
Yes.
That's the thing. And
You've
Jordan
seen it firsthand.
Yeah, it's like, so what are you doing exactly? Like, you know what you've done. Because there's this great thing with this all rolled out is like Isaiah Ryder telling that story about Kevin Garnett as a rookie, like running his mouth at Jordan when Ryder was having a really good game in Minnesota, and Isaiah's like, stop.
Yeah.
Like, stop doing this now. But yeah, BJ knew, and I guess maybe just caught up in the moment or whatever. And let's say almost the same with Horace Grant, like Horace Grant allowing himself to be carried off the floor in Chicago, like in front of Jordan. You know what's going to happen.
Or the Nick Anderson story too.
I mean, you got Nick Anderson saying 45 ain't 23. You got B.J. Armstrong going off. You have Horace Grant going off. There's so many instances in this episode of Michael Jordan just getting pissed off. George Karl in the 96 final getting pissed off, blowing him off at dinner, and MJ being like, okay, I'm going to kick your ass now. Like, that's all it takes. Like, don't say hello to the guy at dinner, and he's going to blow you up. Like...
Well, the scary part is it doesn't even have to be real. Like we found out with that LeBradford Smith story or whatever. That he'll just invent something just to destroy you. So that's amazing.
Dude, you walk past Michael Jordan and you blink the wrong way, and this dude is gonna take you to the court. I mean, he's just gonna get pissed off. Like I want to know more about that George Karl dinner because I mean they're both UNC guys. They're both, like you said, they're both close. They both under Dean Smith. And the other thing is, I gotta wonder if like Sam Perkins was at that dinner because him and Michael Jordan are best friends, and Perkins was on that team as well.
Well, I mean, it sounded like Jordan was at dinner with Ahmad Rashad, and Karl was in the same restaurant, and Karl just walked by him and didn't say anything.
Yeah,
so,
I don't know. I was just like kind of just throwing it out there. I just wanted to know if like maybe Perkins was like with Jordan or hanging out or so. You know what I mean? They're such good friends, but yeah, as an excuse, George Karl. I don't know what the hell George Karl was thinking. Like, what are you doing? Like. It's crazy, man. It's just like these guys do not learn. Like you say anything or you do anything. I mean, even his own damn teammates. Like he gets pissed off his own damn teammates. He's out here freaking clocking Steve Kerr in the face. He's got Scott Burrell like just ready to cry. It looked like.
Oh man.
No, I'm Burrell, dude. Hey, 23 points in game 3, the clinch.
Doesn't, signify the 98 Bulls, like just anything about it. It's just like, oh, well, he was a part of it. Then you're like, okay, maybe he was a little bit bigger part of it than, what was led on. And really, I mean, he showed a lot of promise early on in his career, dealt with some injuries, came to the Bulls. I believe Dickie Simpkins was the trade there, I think.
Yeah.
That's a name that I remember. not necessarily Scott Burrell.
No.
But, just, again, like you said, having to put up with all of that. All of it, and to do it so well, and it sucks because like he was only there for a year, and then it was like poof, gone. And really, and that's you can say that about really the whole '98 team to an extent. But
no,
it
was just see like listening to him talk to Scott Burrell and who's the other, Jed Bushler. He's Michael Jordan's bringing back Ho, like it's like calling him like it's his name. Like more than once, and then he gives him the good old eye thing. He's like looking at him like, holy crap. But yeah, I mean, you just saw, the competitiveness. He'd go to any level just to get an edge on his opponent and just try to making his teammates around him better. It's crazy. And I'm sure he was like that, like with his family too. I know like his daughter and one of his sons have done like interviews, podcasts, and I think it was his daughter, Jasmine, that said, like, yeah, it wasn't really in sports when, my dad was competitive with us. It was like, him and his daughter were really big into Sudoku. And, like, she said he was just very, like, competitive in that. Can you imagine Michael Jordan being competitive in Sudoku? Like, you're just sitting there.
Yes,
he's like
I can.
breaking the damn pencil. He's like, just, oh, my God. It probably makes you play with a pen so that, like, you can't erase or anything.
Something. I mean, just the competitiveness in everything too. I know we've all heard the stories about the gym that Warner Brothers built just for Space Jam, but then on top of that, instead of just like leaving the story at that, to talk about the pickup games and to see the footage of the pickup games and to talk about how Michael more or less set that up as a way to get dirt on his opponents. Like, I loved every piece of that, just leading off of that Orlando series and everything that happened with Horace Grant going out on shoulders and just lighting a spark under MJ leading into that 72-10 season. It's like I get why they all came together, but at the same time, it's like, could you not kind of see that there's a reason Jordan wanted you guys all to come here to a movie set to play?
Reggie Miller said that was the worst thing they ever did, was essentially just go out there and allow him to get better at basketball. Reggie has said that before. It's like, that was the dumbest thing we did. But everyone wanted, but he was such this. He was the icon. He was the GOAT. So when you had an opportunity to play with him, what are you going to say? No, because he's coming back. You're going to hear about it for the rest of the year. So you might as well just go out there. But yeah, it was those pickup games. I would have loved to have seen like more footage of those, because I'm sure those were just wars.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, it was good footage to have. I've never seen anything kind of like that. I knew about the court and everything, but
you hadn't seen some of the footage before?
No, I never saw any of the footage before. That was really good, and I mean, it makes sense too, because I'm sure a lot of them probably lived out there anyway. Like Reggie Miller's from, he went to UCLA.
Yeah, he's from out that area.
Yeah, so I mean, like, and I was trying to look at the players that were actually there. I caught a bunch of them. I mean, I'm sure I missed some, but like it was like Reggie Miller, Sean Bradley, obviously the ones that were in the movie,
Juwan
Larry
Howard.
Johnson, but yeah, Juwan Howard. But it looked like there was some other guys.
Kenny Smith said he went out there too.
Was he out there?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that was just, to be in there, those pickup games is like insane. And not to get off topic, but so his house in Lake Forest or wherever it's at up there that hasn't been sold. Speaking of the podcast thing, his son was on one of the podcasts. I think it was Barstool Chicago, and he was talking about like the pickup games he used to host there in high school while he was going to like Lake Forest. He'd have like NBA guys come in, like Derrick Rose would show up, like Illinois commits would come in and play, like his teammates from Illinois, his older brother's teammates from Illinois would come in and play. He said it was just like you'd have anywhere from veteran NBA players to retired players to just high school players playing pickups inside of Michael Jordan's house.
I would have expected those Illinois teams to be better then.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
And like, that's the crazy thing about this whole documentary is, it came out this week. Jordan refused to shoot any of the interviews in his own home, but to me, given the fact, like, he's had, and I know he has several homes, but the fact that like he's been sitting on this mansion in Lake Forest for God knows how many years, you would think that for as anticipated as this whole documentary was, that if he was to shoot it somewhere, do it in the mansion that you've been trying to sell and you've been cutting the price year after year after year to add as a selling point of, all the stories, everything was filmed here. Like, I feel, I don't know, like that thought came to me as well. It's like, why would you not do that to try and like upsell this house instead of just sitting on it? Like, I don't know. Like, the marketer in me came out on that.
What house do you think he's in? Because he's got one like a private island in Florida. He's got one near the Bahamas.
They rented houses to shoot these. Yeah, they rented these mansions to shoot his parts because he refused to do it in homes that he owned. I don't know why. It makes no sense to me. I guess from a security standpoint.
Maybe he didn't trust like.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't trust like the camera crew or like, you know what I mean? Someone like, oh, hey, I'm filming over here. But I mean, speaking of the house at Michael Jordan in Lake Forest, I mean, why not turn that into a museum? He could make some cash off of that. He's never going to sell. Who's going to buy that house?
It'll turn it into an Airbnb.
Well, I mean, if you guys want to
stay there for like
together,
$3,000 a night, like sleep in Michael Jordan's bed.
I mean, it's been on the market for like 10 years.
Yeah.
It's
crazy. Absolutely. It's just like, I don't know. Like, it's got to sell at some point. But, we'll see. Who knows? I'm sure it'll get some extra push with everything going on here. But not to get too far off topic. Again, talking about, like I said, like the pickup games and everything, and then immediately going into that 1996 final and just everything about that 72-10 team and just how dominant they were based off of what MJ was and everything that he put into that season. Again, we mentioned the George Karl blowing off MJ at dinner. It started off with one of my favorite moments tonight did with the Craig Sager question at the interview, and then watching MJ's reaction to Gary Payton's comments was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And just to see, like, he's just like watching it, and then he's realizing what's being said, and he's kind of just 100%. Like that is going to be gold for anything that is seen, and you look at it and you're just like, what the fuck?
I think, when Gary was kind of explaining how he was trying to get him like worn down and tired, I was ready for him to say, like, yeah, if we would have put him out, if they would have put me on him in game 1, the series would have changed. He caught himself, I think, and he's like, I don't know if it would change the series or not, and he just like goes on about it. That was hilarious.
And historically, there's a couple things wrong with that. I'll hop on my soapbox. It's actually kind of funny. Like the first game Peyton played, the narrative was Peyton was on Jordan for game whatever that been 4. Yeah, Jordan had a terrible shooting night. Yeah. What they don't talk about is the next night, game 5, Jordan shot like 11 for 22 from the field, had a really good game, and the Bulls would have won that game and closed them out. But Pippen shot like 5 for 20. So it wasn't so much Gary Payton doing anything. It was just like that series would have been over in 5 if Pippen hadn't had a 5 for 20 game in game 5 to send it back to Chicago in game 6. And then honestly, in those first 3 games where the Bulls were dominating, Payton was on Jordan quite a bit. They didn't have him as his primary defender, but Payton was guarding him a lot. They showed a few highlights of the first 3 games, and Jordan was taking it to him. So it's a fun narrative that gets spun up, but it really doesn't have a ton of basis in fact or how the series actually went.
I'm seeing that they got Peyton for that. I'm now curious to see what Peyton's response is going to be, because I'm sure him watching MJ's reaction is the first time that he has seen it this week. So to get that is going to be entertaining to see if he has any rebuke whatsoever to what Michael said in regards to, I didn't have a problem with him. Like,
shout out to one of the best signs I've ever seen in sports history, legalized Kemp. That was amazing.
Yes. And also, it's kind of touch on the uniforms. Dude, the Magic uniforms, great. Pacers uniforms, great. Sonics uniforms, great.
No.
Sonics uniforms were fantastic. Dude.
Those are terrible.
You got the tower in the middle of the uniform.
I prefer the ones that they went to or that they had before they went to that look, like the old green and yellow, like the old
like sun was rising or something like that.
Yeah, oh god, those mid-90s ones were. Oh.
I do like the warm-ups they had though. Every team had like that traditional like V-neck warm-up and Seattle. Those were pretty cool as well. Yeah. But yeah, that sign was incredible. When I saw them, I'm like, oh, jeez. It was a lot better than the freaking Pacers one they showed at the end of the episode. It's like, let's go, you Pacers.
It's like, are you meaning like go away, or you mean like, yay, Pacers? Like,
yeah.
It's like in a cartoon when you just see the word state across a pennant and they're holding it up at a game.
Who failed grammar class?
Yeah, the Sonics one, A+ sign. A+ sign. Yeah, I mean that Sonic series was obviously interesting. I remember watching it. Mm-hmm. That was kind of my, biggest memory, or the memory I have like more vivid as far as time goes. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, they did show Peyton guarding Jordan a little bit in games 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, he didn't seem to have much effect. I just, like I said, like if you go back and look at that game 5 box score, Jordan shoots 50% from the field. I think he has like 26. He might almost have a triple double that game, like 26, 8, and 7 or something like that. And Pippen just shoots 5 for 20 and just, he has no support.
And, I mean, just the fact like it started off 3-0, it's like, okay, like even if there is a little bit of toying involved, and I know that the entire city of Chicago is basically like, we got this wrapped up. There's not a chance in hell the Seattle Supersonics are going to win 4 straight against us, under any circumstance, which I think is a pretty solid assumption, no matter what's going on. But
yeah, that Sonics team though was kind of interesting. Like they had a couple.
That was a really good team.
Yeah, I mean, dude, like you had like a lot of pretty damn good players. Like Obviously, Sean Kemp, Gary Payton, a young Eric Snow was on that team, I
Was
believe. I
Detlef
got the
Schrempf?
roster
Yeah.
pull. I'm sure.
Detlef Schrempf, Sam
Yeah,
Perkins, Nate
Detlef Schrempf,
McMillan. I
Nate
mean, there's
McMillan,
some. That was a
Hersey Hawkins.
Hersey Hawkins, who eventually became a Bull. I mean, there were some talented guys on that team. Snow wasn't getting a ton of run at the time, I don't think, but like that, their top 7 or 8 guys are really solid NBA players, and that was a really good basketball team. And people forget, honestly, that Sonics team had been on the come up since like 93, 94. They were the 1 seed, and that they had that famous upset loss to the Nuggets with Dikembe and all that. I mean, Seattle's been a good franchise for about 4 to 5 years at this point, and we're kind of really building towards something.
Happened.
Yeah, they just kind of ran into the. Yeah.
That was the end of the Seattle Supersonics. Although it would kind of be nice to have them back, in all honesty. But
I mean, the Utah teams were pretty good too, coming up.
You know, it's funny. You know, there was talk again this week just about John Stockton's involvement in all of this, and we're going to see him for the first time next week with those back-to-back final series, obviously, that wrapped up the Bulls' second three-peat here, and how he almost didn't want to be a part of it because he thought it was just going to be a Jordan fluff piece, and he didn't want any part of that. And it's like, okay, like the salt is still there in the wound, and obviously there's a lot to be said regarding the butting of heads, because I mean those Utah teams were pretty damn good. It's just,
and for a long time, that was the tail end of their window. I mean, you basically had Jordan stonewalling Hall of Famers from getting rings for the better part of basically 10 years in the 90s. And those Jazz team were really good, and that was their time. I mean, I'm sure Stockton and Malone feel they should have 2 rings right now if it weren't for Jordan. I would have been interested to see that Pacers Jazz series, how that would have played out. I think that would have been a really good series, and I think the Jazz would have won the first of the 2 matchups had they gone through. But yeah, I would imagine Stockton and Malone have to feel really, really bad, and have a lot of conflicted feelings about it.
Well, I mean, you have Jordan stonewalling, and then it's like for the Western Conference, it's like, okay, the Spurs get theirs with Duncan and Robinson, and then
the Rockets got theirs.
Yeah. And you got Kobe Shaq coming up, and you're like, okay, now we're going to get stonewalled by Kobe and Shaq for a couple of years. It's like, what the hell do we got to do? I want to ask you guys this, though, before we get for next week. I'm very, very curious here. How many former Jazz players, do you think are interviewed in the next 2 episodes?
I don't care as long as they get Russell.
God, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen.
There's no chance. You know what? What if it ends? What if it ends with Russell saying, "Yeah, he pushed off"? The documentary closes.
And just Jordan meme laughing.
You know that if they're going to give Gary Payton the opportunity, they're going to give MJ the opportunity to respond to Gary Payton's comments. You know damn well that they would give him the opportunity to respond to Russell.
Yeah.
In that case,
I don't see many. I think it'll be Stockton. He's confirmed for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's Stockton. Do you get Hornacek? I don't think Malone will do it, but there's no chance Malone will do it.
I think I could see Malone maybe, but Malone's kind of a recluse anyway. He's a really quiet guy to begin with for the most part since he's retired. I for sure Stockton, he's confirmed. I really hope Russell
might be the guy.
Hornacek I could see.
One.
I mean, who else though? Like,
do you get
I
Jerry
don't
Sloan?
think Ostertag's gonna talk.
No one cares.
Yeah, that dude's like in a bunker somewhere, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, they got to have a couple. They have to. I mean, for as big as those series were.
Who are the assistants on that team?
I don't know.
I mean, they got to have somebody, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'll put the over under at, I don't know, 2.5.
Antoine Carr.
That'd be. I feel like that'd be a reach. I mean, I don't know. I feel like you have to have more than 2 though, just because that series was so important. Both series were so important just to the overall scope of things, no matter how difficult they may be to relive and talk about. It's all a part of it. And somebody took the money and said, okay, I'll sit down and talk about it.
Yeah, and I haven't seen any previews for next week's episode. I missed them right before I came downstairs to log on to do this. So I mean, there might be some not spoilers as far as who they got for the Jazz for next week in the previews for 9 and 10.
I'm looking at the roster. I mean, Howard Isley, like Adam
Shannon
Peete,
Anderson.
Shannon Anderson, like there's really not like many people. So let me find their coaches. I think you'd probably get Sloan.
It was a top
I
heavy
don't know,
team.
man.
In the reality of things, it was a top heavy team.
Yes.
No, granted, the top was pretty heavy. You had two two obvious Hall of Famers.
Right. It's
yeah, and a very good player in Hornacek, a good shooter.
Beat Kerr, I believe, for the 3-point title one year. I just remember being very bitter about that in one of the years that there was All-Star festivities, but yeah, no, I don't know. You know how I would love the whole thing to end is by Russell saying, "Yeah, he pushed off," and then we get MJ looking at it and him just going, "Shut up, you hoe," and just ending like. Just to see that ruthlessness one last time, just wrapping it all up.
I'll be interested to see how they do end it. I've read one tiny thing about how it might end and how they might tie it all together. I won't spoil it here, but it'll at least be interesting and leave you. If what I've heard is correct about as far as like what there's like a nugget of information in this last episode in 10, there's going to be a lot of Bulls fans like, oh my God, I'm angry now. Still to this day, they're going to continue to be angry.
I'm guessing it revolves around one guy.
Yes,
maybe. I'm not going to say anything more.
You know they should. You know what they should have just come on and talk. They should have had like Andre Karolinko, even though he had nothing to do with that team. Like, yeah, you play Jazz.
You couldn't get anybody else. Here you go.
Come talk. Come talk.
You can't understand half the crap he says with his accent.
Yeah.
Get the subtitles up on the screen. Yeah, no big deal. Okay, so final question, I guess. What you're hoping most for out of these final 2 episodes? Kind of a loaded question.
Yeah, I mean, I think like we all said in the beginning, I think we pretty much have an idea of what it's going to be. It's going to be very heavy. I think it'll be very heavy. It's going to go one or two ways. It's going to go like very heavy on both Jazz series at the end for one episode, like the last episode, or they're going to split it and kind of do the Pacer series and then the first Jazz series and then go. I mean, other than that, I don't know because like there's not much. I mean, we all kind of know how it went down after. Like,
and that's the one thing I want to know is we all know how it went down after. We knew how it went down during. The one question I want answered is how close was it if there was any chance of them running it back again? Like we all kind of assumed like this thing was dead in the water from the preseason on through. It was called The Last Dance, blah blah blah. Like that's what I want to know is how close was it to being run back? Like even if it was just Jordan and a new guy to replace Pippen and to replace Rodman who was like on his last legs, like how close was this? Was there any opportunity for him like for this thing to come back?
Yeah, I mean, I could see it getting a little answered. I don't know. I just, other than that, there's just not much for me. That's what else could be a surprise.
We're gonna get maybe one more bombshell. I'm kind of waiting for it after that '97 season, in terms of something that really lit the fuse on top of what Jerry Krause was doing, because we really haven't heard too much about the Tim Floyd stuff outside of those first couple episodes and just everything that went into that. And I feel like something else is there. I feel like something was held back, and everybody's just going to be like, "What?" Like, let's pile on a little bit more.
You know,
well, this is already out there, and I don't want to drag us on for too long, but it plays to your point, so I'll bring it up. Is there was an article on ESPN a few weeks ago about Tim Floyd gave an interview, and I may have mentioned this on a previous podcast of this, but Tim Floyd said Jerry Krause approached him after the 95-96 season to take over the team. And, coming off a 72-win season, Krause wanted to get rid of Jackson then. So I have to imagine there'd be some talk of, you know what I mean? Like there has to be some talk of that at some point, maybe next week about, hey, after this one, we wanted them gone. After the second one, we wanted them gone. And finally Krause was just like, I've had enough of it. I want to bring my guy in.
There's got to be something there.
You know what we're going to get? I didn't even think of this. You know what we're going to get? We're going to get the Tracy McGrady story.
Yeah, I wonder if he was interviewed for this.
I don't know.
I'm curious now. That might be part of it.
He hasn't mentioned that he has been.
That was the
and
97
I can't
draft?
Yeah.
He was in, and they were going to trade him. Was it before the 98 or was it?
It was.
Was that the draft?
It was. Yeah. So this last season, it would have been would have been T-Mac.
So we're definitely gonna get that.
But then again, we thought there'd be other things that would be included this week, and lo and behold, nothing happened. So I don't know.
Yep.
Hugh Hollis.
Extended cuts. That's all we need are extended cuts, and we'll all be happy. Give us more stuff to do while we're stuck in our homes. That's all we're asking.
Did they talk about? Did they ever talk about the Sean Kemp, Scottie Pippen? Was it Sean Kemp, Scottie Pippen?
Yeah, it was Pippen for Kemp. That hasn't come up yet. I'm actually surprised they didn't wedge it into this episode talking about the finals, but that was I think that was in the off season where Jordan came back. I think that was leading into this 95-96 season where that because Jordan nixed that trade. Yeah, and I think it was just after he'd come back.
He nixed the McGrady one too, but I'm looking at the McGrady. It doesn't say anything about an interview. He did an interview with someone about.
He mentioned it on the ESPN morning show or whatever he does with Rachel Nichols and Pippen. Pippen wasn't on the whatever morning show that is. Like he mentioned it. Maybe Billups was sitting next to him, but he talked about it.
Yeah,
about how he flew to Chicago for the workouts and or for the physical and all that. Yeah,
pretty damn close to all happening. And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, thank God it didn't. We got what we did, and maybe it could have prolonged things a little bit further. But man, oh man, I don't know. Let's see some bombshells. Got 2 episodes left to go. Next Sunday, episodes 9 and 10. 10 just getting cut this week, so this is fresh. This is as fresh as fresh gets when it comes to TV production. So get ready and hold on to your hats. We got a fun final 2 hours ahead of us. A week from tonight on ESPN with the ending of The Last Dance. Until we get that extended footage, I want it all. That's all. Just get it all.
Yeah.
Great podcast content all week. I think 30 for 30 actually has bonus half-an-hour interviews with the director Jason Herr each week with Jalen and Jacor and all that. So listen to those podcasted up all week.
What? You know what I'm really excited for? We might have to do a return for the long gone summer, the Sosa McGuire.
That's right.
30 for
30. That's right. We got a lot of good stuff coming up. ESPN's kicking up a lot of things. They got that. The Doc Holliday doc is going to be up as well. So ESPN.
Is that a 30 for 30, or is that a? I
want to say that they're doing it kind of like the Alex Smith thing, which, by the way, I watched the other night, and my God, those pictures, that is going to be ingrained in my memory for the rest of time.
He's also.
Refuse to watch it
for good reason.
Watching those workouts he was doing, I don't think he's playing football.
Looks so formed. Good. I don't want to think about it anymore.
Well, before we close it out, my thing now is like now that they've pushed up all these 30 for 30s, it's like, do we get any at the end of the year?
We're just gonna be thankful there's sports. Hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood. By the end of the year.
Fingers crossed.
We'll see what happens. Apparently, Major League Baseball is going to try and do things next month, and we'll see how badly that all goes awry. But,
hey, we have Korean baseball.
With fire emergencies and cancellations.
And Tyler Saladino hitting home runs.
I was just about to mention him. There was with an awesome mustache.
Yeah.
Oh, the things that sports gives us in 2020. We should be grateful, right? Maybe? I don't know. All right. Well, like I said, next week, the final week of The Last Dance, will be right back here on Facebook, on YouTube, recapping it all and going over our favorite moments and everything that has to do with episodes 9 and 10. So for Zach Pearson and Nick Bidding, I'm Steven Johnson. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, be here right after everything wraps up, shortly after 10 o'clock Central Time next Sunday night for the recap of the final 2 episodes of The Last Dance. Have a great week. We will talk to you a week from tonight.